Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Foxtrot mic Gen 2 FM15 upper receivers. But before we get into the video, I do need to shout out Callaway Ballistics. Most of the ammo that you're going to see in this video was supplied by them. So again, go ahead and check them out. You can use code FOCUS to save yourself some money. Now, full disclosure on this upper receiver is that I have absolutely no relationship with Foxtrot mic whatsoever. I paid full retail price from Primary Arms for this, and again, so I have no affiliation with the company or anything like that. Now, getting into specifics of what this version is, there is going to be a few caveats and yeah-buts, if you will, about this specific upper receiver. The version that I bought was the 9-inch 223 Wild non-adjustable gas block version. However, as you see it here, this currently has an adjustable gas block on it, and that is because the kind gentleman from Camo and Plaid sent me his from his 9-inch FM15. And if you're interested, he's done a ton of videos on the FM15 and comparing it to a bunch of other guns as well. He's gonna have a lot more information than I will in this single video. So again, if interested, go ahead and check him out. That is again Camo and Plaid. He also sent me a suppressor spring, which I also bought a suppressor spring for the internal recoil system. And he also sent me a barrel nut that had been bored out to be able to accept standard AR-15 barrels, because the barrel that is in here is a very, very small, low profile barrel, very lightweight, and a normal AR-15 barrel will not fit in here unless you hone out the barrel nut, which he did send me. So in theory, I could swap this from a 9-inch 223 Wild to a 9-inch 300 Blackout or something similar. So going over what this build is now, we of course have a 9-inch 223 Wild barrel. I believe it is 1 in 8 twist 4150 chrome olive vanadium steel. It is a special profile for Foxtrot mic, and it is a pistol length gas system. Now the gas system on here, this is using a double pinned adjustable gas block, and on top of being double pinned, it actually slots into the barrel itself via an extension on the gas block. So they're machined to fit together only one way, so it can't be off left or right, and of course it is double pinned in place, which is very acceptable in terms of installation. Now, earlier on I called it redundant because you really only need one pin in a DI system. 2 pins is perfectly fine, but again, you don't really need that second pin. Talking about the handguard on here, this is a 8-inch 7-sided M-LOK full-length Picatinny. The handguard itself is again perfectly fine, though keep in mind this is the non-adjustable gas block version. The version of the handguard that comes on the model with the adjustable gas block has cutouts on both sides so that you can actually adjust the gas block from the outside, so it is again externally adjustable. This version does not have that, and it is slightly different, so to get it to work with the adjustable gas block did take a little bit of finagling. Now the lockup on the handguard is actually very good. You have a notch cut out of the upper receiver that the handguard then slides into, and it makes direct contact on both sides, so it can't move left or right unless there is some sort of immense amount of force to bend that aluminum on aluminum construction. You also have 2 steel bolts that provide some clamping force, though again the anti-rotation is built into the handguard and upper receiver, so it can't shift left or right. These screws make sure that it can't move forward, and again provide some additional clamping. On top of that, the barrel nut underneath is a lot longer than most of your standard AR-15 barrel nuts, so there's a lot of contact between your handguard, your barrel nut, and your upper receiver. So again, overall the lockup is quite good. Moving back to the upper receiver, these are billet not forged because there is a lot of interesting stuff going on the inside to make sure that they can cycle within the upper receiver itself and don't need a buffer tube. Now the receiver itself is also probably about a ½ inch taller than a standard AR-15 mil-spec upper receiver, so that it's going to elevate your optics, although your stock height is also going to dictate that depending on how high or low you mount your Picatinny stock. One nice thing about the upper receiver is that because it does not have a cutout for a charging handle in the back, and it has this tab that retains your recoil system, it is going to be a lot nicer when suppressed because you're going to get less of that gas flowing out through the back of your upper receiver, because again it is a more sealed system, and they do that by putting the charging handle up front. Now as you see it here, it is a 4-position charging handle, so you can have it to the right, up or down, and to the left, up or down. I have it on the right hand side because I don't really want to use it, so I just want it out of my way, and of course I want my light on the left hand side. One thing that the upper receiver is missing is a forward assist, which did turn out to be a little bit problematic because the biggest issue that I have with the system in general is the internal recoil system, and the fact that it likes to not work all that much. Within the first couple hundred rounds on the first range session, albeit in very, very cold temperatures, I believe it was somewhere between 12 and 15 degrees outside, the smaller internal recoil spring decided to unalive itself a little bit and mangled in the back, which again, that was as it shipped from the factory. And that was with 55 grain reman while shooting suppressed and unsuppressed. Now, Foxtrot mic also sells separately a suppressor spring, which is of course just a heavier spring with a little bit more tension for, of course, suppressed shooting, and that is, at least in my opinion, absolutely necessary for almost all conditions, even if you're not shooting suppressed, especially on the 9-inch version. I'm not sure how it performs on the longer variations because of course they do make 12.5s, 13.9, 16-inch, and probably a few others as well. So without the suppressor spring, with a suppressor on it, or even unsuppressed, it was very, very overgassed, very unpleasant to shoot, and the recoil system, the two recoil springs that overlay on top of each other, like to get bound up. Now, currently, as you see it here, it does have the recoil, the suppressor recoil spring installed, which is again just a higher tension spring, and it is fairly smooth to get it all the way to the bottom. However, there are still some times, if you don't charge it hard enough, that it will bind up towards the back, which can cause feeding issues, and it can also cause it to not lock back on the last round due to no fault of your own. So early on, I did have some teething issues with the internal recoil assembly, but as we'll get into a little bit later on, the adjustable gas block basically fixes all of those issues. Now, taking a look at the BCG, it is their proprietary lightweight BCG, so it is probably an ounce or two lighter than a standard AR-15 BCG, and it is quite interesting looking. And of course, the reason that the BCG looks so funky is that it has to hold the internal recoil assembly and fit into a standard-ish sized AR-15 upper receiver. Now, as far as the specs on the BCG goes, I believe it is a 9310 bolt 8620 carrier. The carrier key is obviously very interesting, and other than that, it is fairly standard. Now, one upgrade on the Gen 2 versions, which this is versus the original versions, is they were having, I believe, light primer strikes or slam fires where the BCG would go back at a high enough velocity with the firing pin slightly forward, which would cause slam fires. So the firing pin on the Gen 2 versions has been fixed. The way that they fixed that has required them to do some interesting things with the extractor roll pin. So the extractor roll pin actually has a bunch of material cut out of it, which I'm not a huge fan of, though again, at this point in time, it hasn't been an issue, and they actually send you more in the box, at least mine did. Mine came with an extra 3 or 4 extractor roll pins, so I'm not sure if they're expecting those to break. Not a great sign that they're including spares in the box, though again, I haven't had any issues at this point in time. As far as the BCG goes, it does work, didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. Extraction was good. Really the only problems that I had mechanically with the system were with those two internal recoil springs that do like to get bound up, and that's the area where I think that the Gen 3 version, hopefully, has the most improvement. Now, getting into shootability and what it was like to actually use the thing, I do want to kind of get a few things out of the way at first. 9-inch 5.56 is not the most efficient use of 5.56. However, 9-inch 5.56 is infinitely better than every pistol caliber on the market, including 5.7x28, especially if you combine it with the right loadings, specifically 40 and 45 grain bullets. You're still going to be pushing 28 to 3,000 FPS out of a 9-inch barrel, which is again infinitely better than any pistol caliber on the market. Pistol calibers only punch holes. Even 5.7 might do a tiny bit more, but 9-inch 5.56 with the right loadings will be absolutely nightmarish, especially inside of close quarter scenarios where a 9-inch 5.56 with a folding stock really shines. Another thing to note is that yes, I did suppress it mostly with a YHM Resonator K, which does void the warranty. That's all right. Be a man, void your suppressor warranty. But when shooting suppressed with the adjustable gas block, with the suppressor spring installed in the back, it was actually surprisingly nice to shoot and actually quite fun. You get very little gas blowback to the face because of course the sealed upper receiver with the adjustable gas block suppressor spring in the back. It was very, very manageable. Now on the adjustable gas block, you only have 3 positions. I believe I used it mostly on the medium position and it functioned again 100% with the suppressor that I have installed. Your mileage is going to vary a little bit depending on what ammo you're using and what can you're using as well, of course. One thing I will note is that with the gas block all the way open when unsuppressed with the suppressor spring in the back, it didn't really like to lock back on the 55 grain reman ammo, which is a little bit softer than some of your really hot 5.56 loadings, so again, your mileage will vary. However, as you see it here, this is how I intend to use it, a suppressed 9-inch 5.56, and that shot very, very nicely. I was actually surprised at how well it shot because again, originally, without the suppressor spring in the back, without the adjustable gas block, it was very punishing to shoot and almost annoying to use. So for that reason, I, for no reason whatsoever, recommend the non-adjustable gas block version. There's only about $30 or $40 difference in cost. So if you see one of these floating around, I would never get the non-adjustable version, just get the adjustable version and you're gonna save yourself a lot of headaches. And of course you can tune it for different situations, whatever you happen to be using it for. Now, one thing that I do wanna mention before we move on is that yes, the Picatinny adapter in the back is really annoying to install, but you only have to do it once, so it's not that big of a deal. The stock that I am currently using, this is the Midwest Industries lightweight folding stock, which folds off to the left, though I believe you can swap it over to the right if you so desired. And while yes, in this configuration it is certainly very baggable, it will fit into just about any medium-sized backpack out there. I do agree with Brassfax, if you put this into a bag, it no longer becomes a backpack, it's more of a gun bag, so you are giving up a lot of space for a lot of your important items to get something this big, whereas there are truly PDW sized platforms out there that are just not going to take up the same space. Now, while accuracy is probably not the most important thing to people buying a 9-inch 5.56, I did do initial accuracy testing when I got this upper receiver, and it would shoot anywhere from 2 to 4 MOA with ball ammo, which is perfectly normal and acceptable, and it would shoot between 1 and 2 MOA with most of the match loads. So it is certainly capable of accuracy even with that 9-inch lightweight profile barrel, and I did take this upper receiver out to about 300 yards just using the Vector, whatever this is, Frenzy plus red dot on there, and again, the accuracy is perfectly fine, and again, 5.56 is also infinitely more capable at distance than any pistol caliber on the market. Getting into the value discussion, this is technically a high value system if you're looking for a AR-15 internal recoil assembly, something that can accept a folding stock. This is technically a high value option, as I believe it is the cheapest on the market. These are usually sub $500 even for the adjustable gas block versions, which again are the only ones that I recommend. That price is a little misleading though, as you will almost always need a Picatinny folding stock as well, and even cheap ones run from $100 to $200. So realistically, you're looking at about $700 out the door if you don't already have a Picatinny folding stock on hand, which again, I still think is the cheapest AR-15 internal recoil assembly folding stock on the market. However, when you compare it to other just standard AR-15 uppers that you can get for again that $600–700 price category, it's going to be less accurate, less reliable, less durable, shoot worse. Yeah, it's just not a great value when you compare it to standard AR-15 components. Now, if for whatever reason you need that internal recoil assembly, you need that folding stock capability in a very short package, I think this version actually makes the most sense. Because if you get a 16-inch gun, even with a folding stock, a 16-inch gun is very long, and you don't really need a folding stock because you're not really gaining any portability or concealability with it. With this version, you at least do have the option to put it in less conspicuous places, bags, nooks and crannies, whatnot, so on and so forth. Even then, the only versions that I recommend are the ones with the externally adjustable gas blocks, because that is going to add some additional versatility to the system. I do think that these can be cool options in the future. I really wouldn't recommend these for super hard use duty builds or very, very serious applications, just because of some of the quirks with the system, and Foxtrot mic's quality control has not always been the best. I do think that these are interesting and novel, and in the future can still be improved. There is certainly a lot of room for improvement to make these even better. And if they continue to do that, I think the concept is cool. I would like to see it improved in future. And if they do come out with new versions with updated feature sets, a little bit better reliability, more adjustability, whatever else it may be, I will probably be taking a look at those in the future. So with all of that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Foxtrot mic Gen 2 upper receivers. And with all of that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. God bless.